That's why if you drive a truck, this video matters. So many truckers out there think that it's the most obvious things that can put you out of service. Bad brakes, blown tires, something major. But I'm telling you right now, being on the road, that's not what I see most of the times. It's the small stuff that looks fine at a glance that ends up shutting drivers down pretty much instantly in many cases. Today in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the exact issues that I personally see roadside as an inspector that have gotten so many drivers put out of service. Sometimes it's minutes or seconds within an inspection even starting. And here's the thing, to many drivers out there, many of these things don't look all that serious until they are. We're going to go through things like tires that look fine but actually are not up to par, air brake issues that drivers a lot of times don't check properly, and lighting problems that cross that line into out of service violations. And I'll show you exactly how you can avoid them. Let's start with the one that I see personally the most. That's going to be tires. And when I say tires, I'm not even talking about tires that seem to be blown or completely flat. And I'm telling you right now, this is where so many drivers out there get caught off guard. Because from a distance, the tire may look completely fine to the driver, even on a pre-trip. The tire may have good tread, it's holding air, and there are no obvious issues with it at a quick glance. But when you actually take a closer look, that's where the problem is. That means that if cords are showing even slightly, that is going to be out of service and there is no debate. Now, this is tough to catch sometimes because looking quickly on the outside of a tire, it may look completely fine, but I have seen cords showing on the inner side of a tire on a dual set, so it really is hard to catch unless you were really looking on your pre-trip. And this is exactly how it happens. You do a quick walk around, you check your tires real quick, and everything looks good. But you didn't check the one spot on the inner sidewall or shoulder where the rubber is worn down just enough to expose that belt or cord. And that right there is all it takes. And in a second, I'm going to tell you the air brake issue that puts so many drivers out of service and that so many drivers miss, and it's way less obvious than the tires that we just discussed. But for right now, let's finish up with that tire talk. So another big thing with the tires is going to be sidewall damage. Cuts, bulges, anything that messes with the safety or compromises the structure of that tire is no good. That's not just a watch it later situation. That can also be an out of service violation depending on the severity. And then of course we have tread depth. This one is one that I see drivers try to eyeball all the time, and sometimes they are wrong. So a lot of drivers out there may know the general numbers, 432nd on steer tires and 232nd on others, but what they don't realize is that it's not just about average tread. It's about the most worn point on that tire. So if you have a tire, for example, more than half of that thing is almost bald or way below what it's supposed to have for tread, but then some spots of that tire meets the correct threshold, that can still be an out of service because the majority of that tire pretty much is no good by how the standards go. So if you've got really uneven wear and a lot of sections are below minimum, that's where violations can come into play. So just make sure that your tires are wearing down evenly. Air brakes and air leaks. This is where drivers really get caught because the truck feels fine, it builds air pressure, the brakes feel normal, everything seems, dare I say, good. But when you actually test it properly, that's where it can fail. And I'm talking about an air loss test or air loss rate. Many drivers out there say your leak down test. Now this is straight out of FMCSA standards under 396.13, an inspection criteria used during roadside inspections. If your system is not maintaining air and it is losing air too quickly, that becomes a problem real fast, and again, it's a major out of service problem because we can kind of see how that's not exactly safe. Now here's where drivers miss it. They don't actually test it the way that they should be testing it. A lot of times they'll just walk around the truck and try to listen for leaks, and they will have their brakes set. That's counterproductive. You're not going to hear all leaks if your brakes are set. So you can either have a buddy help you or place down wheel chocks. You need to release your brakes to properly hear if there are any leaking air hoses. Again, so many experienced truckers out there already know this, but it still sometimes slips through the cracks. And depending on whether it's a straight truck or a combination vehicle, such as the TT unit, the allowable air loss per minute is different. And if you exceed that, that can lead to an out of service condition under CVSA criteria. If you want to need more clarification on that, remember, check out 49 CFR 396.13. After we're finished talking about this whole air topic, I'm going to show you how something as simple as lights can also shut you down pretty quickly, and so many drivers overlook it. Look, here's the reality. I've had trucks come into a detail, build full air pressure, and everything seems normal. And within a couple of minutes being deep into the inspection, when I actually check, they fail for the same air loss that we just talked about. That's where a big disconnect comes in. What feels fine and what passes inspections are not always the same thing. I've also had trucks where I've heard an audible air leak, but it's at a proper connection, and I do the airdrop test, and those trucks still pass. So that's just how finicky it can all be. Alright, so I want y'all to be honest with me right now down in the comments. When is the last time you actually did a full and correct air brake leak down test or air loss rate test? And I don't just mean listening, but actually testing it. Again, let us know down in the comments. Now let's talk about lighting. Now this one is where many drivers out on the road do underestimate it, because most drivers think, well, it's just a light out, I'll fix it later. And sometimes, yeah, depending on what the light is, it may not be a big deal immediately, but it's not about one light. It's about what and when it crosses the threshold. Under FMCSA regulations, specifically 49 CFR 393.9, required lights must be operational, and that's where it becomes more serious. And when multiple required lamps are not functioning, that's where it becomes more serious. And this is what I see all the time. Marker lights out, tail lamps partially working, maybe a turn signal issue or two. Individually, so many drivers I've seen, they've brushed that off. But collectively, now you got a pattern. And that pattern is what gets attention during a DOT inspection. And if you've stayed with me this far, I'm going to tie all of this together and show you why these small issues are actually what shut drivers down, not the big obvious ones. Here's the truth. It's not always the catastrophic things that get drivers put out of service. It's the small things that keep getting overlooked time and time again. Tires that looked fine until you really looked. Air systems that worked okay or seemed like they worked okay until they were really tested. Lights that seem minor until they actually add up. That's what actually gets drivers shut down a lot of times. So out of everything that we talked about today, which one do you think drivers out here are missing the absolute most? Drop it in the comments and let us know. If you got value from this, make sure you hit like and please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps push us out to so many other drivers so we can keep building this community and reach more people that need to see this even though they don't know they need to see it yet. And if you want real, no-nonsense trucking updates, trucking news, industry updates, this is the channel for you, and I want you to be here. Because believe it, I got more videos coming. As always, stay safe, keep rolling.